Gentlemen, is Chicago's defense good enough to lead them to the Super Bowl?
No, they're not good enough to lead them to the Super Bowl because of the day and age we live in the NFL. I love the Bears defense. Absolutely love it. And they're going to beat Nick Foles. They're going to bend Nick Foles up during this game. They're going to take care of that. Nick Foles ain't surprising nobody. I know Philly made their run with Foles in the offense, which they are better with Nick Foles. I think they get more creative, and they do a lot of things, Peterson and crew. But I don't, in 2018, Wood, and 19, I don't think we looking at the league like when Tampa won it with Sapp and Big Booger McFarland and all of those guys. I don't think we looking at it when the Ravens won with Ray and Ed Reed and that defense that they were rolling with. You got to put points on the board, man. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. Philly played great defense last year, get to the Super Bowl, and you got to put points on the board to beat Tom. So as much as I love what Chicago is doing, 50 sacks and 25 interceptions. Like that
speak on that again. Say it again.
50 sacks and 25 picks. Mm-hmm. So it's hard for me not to say it, but leading them to a Super Bowl, I don't know if I trust Mitch Trubisky enough in the game where you might have to put up 30 to 35 points to get a W.
Listen, I think they can. I definitely think the Chicago Bears defense can lead them to a Super Bowl, and here's why. Football, at the end of the day, is a very simple sport. Okay, you got to block, tackle, throw, catch, all those type of things. And with the Chicago Bears defense, particularly all over their defense, they got speed all over the field. But in particular, their front, they don't have to do a lot of exotic things on their front because when you got Akeem Hicks and Khalil Mack and those and Leonard Floyd up front, those guys can get after you just off of a four-man rush. And I always look at one team, the team that has home field advantage, and that's the New Orleans Saints. As tough of a home field advantage it is down there at the Superdome, if you watch New Orleans, these past few weeks, particularly on offense, they've kind of been sputtering a little bit offensively. And I think everyone wants to know, well, why is that the case? I look at the big boys up front. Early on in the season, New Orleans, particularly up front, I felt like they were one of the most dominant offensive lines in the league. But when you look at the matchup between the Chicago Bears front against New Orleans, I think it would cause huge problems for the New Orleans Saints and Drew Brees to be able to get after them. And the one thing about the Saints, also, they don't have a lot of speed on the outside. Okay, I know Mike can't guard Mike. Can't guard Mike. He's a dog. There's no question about that. They don't have a lot of burners on the outside, and I think that's where Chicago can match up with the New Orleans Saints in that aspect, the speed that they have on defense to be able to disrupt that that New Orleans Saints offense.
I don't want to knock Mitch Trubisky. I hadn't seen enough to tell me that if you are in a position to score on Drew Brees, because the Saints has a really good defense too.
Correct.
A lot of people don't mention that. I'm taking Drew Brees against any defense before I'm taking Mitch, even in a low-scoring game, right? We talked about the Saints sputtering when you mentioned that. The Saints won those games, though. And, going back to Dallas, they lost that game. It was a bad night. The defense played well. But at home in the Superdome, in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, the Saints are a different animal. And I know for a fact that Chicago's going to come in there, play well on defense, but the Saints are as well. And I just don't – I'm taking Drew Brees against defenses before I take Mitch Trubisky.
And I think that's the big key. We talk about the Chicago Bears defense, and the Saints defense has actually been playing well. And I think the biggest difference is going to be Mitch Trubisky and how Matt Nagy uses him. Because the one thing that Mitch Trubisky had – the boy can run with his legs. The boy can run with his legs. They got Tariq Cohen, Jordan Howard. And I think that Matt Nagy will have a game plan to be able to utilize all the different parts. And you combine that with that Chicago Bears defense, they're going to be tough. I could absolutely see them coming out of the
Well, what Trubisky can do, that's definitely going to factor into the Bears' success in this game.